Okay, this week we are going to kind of vary from the book and we are going to learn about debugging. Debugging is probably something we should have covered in 155 when we started getting into different OO procedures and classes, because there's a lot of things that are kind of going on behind the scenes and we kind of don't know what's going on. So debugging is kind of one of those tools that we really need to kind of pay attention to and utilize it to help us kind of dive into our program and get deep into it. So I've provided a PDF of a chapter out of an Eclipse book. Not really a textbook per se, more of a kind of a manual. And it talks about debugging in Java. So here, basically what we have is when we debug in Java and Eclipse, we are going to a different view. Now, Eclipse has different views that are called perspectives. So perspectives is basically a perspective, and Eclipse is just a view that we are going to go to. So if I were to bring up Eclipse, you would see that we've always been in the Java perspective. That's primarily where we work out of, I would say probably 95% of the time. And there's other perspectives out there, and the way we can get to them, we can actually click on Window, and then there is a perspective menu, and there's different perspectives. Okay, and I can click Open, and there's Debug, the Java browser, there's Java, which again what we basically utilize. Java browsing is more web-based type of things, kind of like our applets. And then we've got hierarchy, planning, boom, boom, boom. And the one we're going to talk about is this one called debug. So what debug allows us to do is to kind of stop the code and basically kind of go from there. So what we are going to do is we're going to set a breakpoint at certain places. Now a breakpoint is just that. It's a place to say stop here and let me kind of go in and debug this thing. So before we go on, let's kind of take a look at the item here. So it says so the Java development tool, that's what we're using, is the Eclipse tool. Includes a state-of-the-art debugging capabilities. The Java debugger allows you to detect and correct errors in your code as your code executes. So as your code is running, you can actually see it actually run line by line by line. You can go in and look at variables. You can see what the contents are. You can actually go in and change the contents of the variable. You can actually add code right there on the spot, which is pretty cool stuff. Or we can actually execute code. You can actually go in and say, hey, in this blank line right here, I want this calculation to go on and see what happens. So really cool stuff. So it kind of gives an overview. So on figure 4.1 in the pamphlet, it talks about the debug perspective. Again, that's the debug view that we're going to be utilizing. So what does debugging allow us to do? We can follow the source in the editor as it executes. We manage our breakpoints from the editor and breakpoint view, so we can actually, again, I can tell it where I want it to stop, and then I can actually modify those as we go along. We can examine variables and in the variables view, so I can actually see what variables contain as we go through. Evaluating expressions and viewing the results of the expressions so again, as we do calculations, we can see how those calculations basically kind of take form. And then following the output of your program and the console view. So the first thing we want to do is set a breakpoint. So to do that, I'm utilizing in chapter 12, we did the Brandy's Bagel House. So I figured that's a pretty good place to kind of set some breakpoints, because it's got a lot of complex, it's calling a lot of different classes and create a lot of different objects basically going on there. So what we have is we have the bagel, and here we basically create, not worrying about the splash, but we're going to do a new order calculator GUI. So basically right here in our order calculator GUI, I come up here to the top, and here's our order calculator GUI, and this is where we can go ahead and Again, this is the constructor that's going to execute when it runs. This is where we can go ahead and set a breakpoint. So I can actually come right here on this line 31, come in there, this little dark area just left of the line count. And again, if you don't have line numbers turned on, you can do like right click right there and say show line numbers. So I'm going to basically do a right click right there, and I'm going to click toggle breakpoint. Notice I can also do a Control-Shift-B, and that will set a breakpoint there as well. So I click and I set a breakpoint. Now if I were to just run this normally and I just click run, it won't go into debug mode. So there the screen comes up and we can actually run it, and it comes up. I click exit, nothing happened. To get into debug mode, we have to run it in debug mode. Notice we got the little bug right here, and that if we point to it, it says debug the order calculator GUI. So I can go ahead and click on the bug, or I can click run, and I can say debug as a Java application. So I click it, and now we're running. Now as soon as it hits that breakpoint, it's going to come up and say, whoa, we're no longer in the Java perspective. We're going to be switching perspectives and switching to the Java perspective. And we just go ahead and click yes, and you'll notice up here in the upper right hand corner we've gone from Java and now we're in the debug perspective. So let's kind of take a look at some of these different windows we have here. I'm going to close this. So this is kind of the default. We have, this is our debug. This kind of shows where we're currently at. Down here, this shows the code as we execute it. Up here we have variables. This shows the different variables and what they contain. And then over here is the outline. Now this has always been available to us, but what it does is allows us to expand a particular class, and inside of there we can see all of the different variables, and then the green ball is going to be the methods, and then the red squares are also going to be objects. There's going to be objects. So the red squares, the red rectangles that are open, not filled, those are going to be variables, and then the red full square is going to be an object. Now if we look right here, you'll notice that we have an F next to tax rate. That F says this is a final. That is a constant. And notice that we have C next to the green ball. That says that is a constructor. So if you see a C next to the if you see a C next to a method, that says that is a constructor. So again, we can see here's the calc button listener. Here is the exit. So here's the different classes. Now notice I've got a class, and remember we have inner classes. So here's a class that's inside of the order calculators, and it's got just one method. We have an exit button listener that has a main inside of that as well, and that S says that is an executable. That is a public static void main. So the S stands for static. So basically we know that is going to probably be X when we see the main, and then the string inside, we know that's probably executable. Okay, so that's kind of a nice thing there as well. So right now we're stopped right here on this set title. So before we continue, let's take a look at the book, and it says that so we've started our debug session. Now, if I didn't have a breakpoint set and I clicked run in debug mode, it's going to just run normal because there's no reason for it to stop. So the breakpoint is a way for us to get it to stop. So so to run this now, we have pretty much three main ways we can run it. We've got one that's called step over. What that does is that kind of executes the current line, and basically, no matter what it is, it executes it and basically comes right back to where we're at. Step into says if I'm calling another procedure and another method or even another class, it's actually going to go into that and allow us to go step by step by step. So let's say I have a object name .get variable name. If I do step over, it's just going to automatically go into that other class, execute that data, get the data, come back, and then it's going to leave me right where I'm at. So I won't even know it did anything. Just all of a sudden executed that particular method. But if I say step into, it's actually going to step us into that method where we can go line by line by line. Step return says go ahead and step into that guy and then basically return any objects that we need. So it says resumes the execution of the end of the current method and suspends the execution on the statement after the method invocation or until another breakpoint is encountered. So it's going to basically do that and basically come back and basically continue unless there's another breakpoint, then it will stop. Now we do have these two squares here. We got the triangle and the red square. The triangle says go ahead and it says continue running from here. And it will do that. It will go ahead and finish run the program unless it hits another breakpoint. And then if we need to stop the program together, we can always click on this red X. Okay, so let's kind of do that. So I come in here, and so here's my set title order calculator, and I go ahead and click on step over. Now it just executed that method. It went into that particular class, executed it, and then came back. I have no idea what that method just did because it didn't go into it. Now over here in this variables, we can see what current things are set at. If you notice, I got it's called this. Now remember, the nickname for every class or every object we're currently in is called this. If I expand it, this is going to show everything that's available to us, and I do mean everything. Okay, so again, we can see all. Now if you see a little triangle next to it, that is expandable. So here's ACC. This is the access control content. Wow, what is that? So that's so in that particular class, it probably inherited from another class, and that probably is some type of method that particular guy has. And if I expand it, I can see all of the different things are inside of it. Okay, I'd have to go and kind of do a little refresher on what each one of those little items mean, but we can go through here and notice here's bagels. That is a object. We created a bagel object from the bagel panel. Here's the banner. We created a banner object. Here's the button panel. Here's the calc button. Here's the coffee. Here is the, so if I click on coffee, I can see right now it's null. That means we created it, but we haven't done anything with it. So do we have a title? I don't know if we can see the title. Nah, it doesn't look like it. So anyway, so we can see all of the different fields that are associated with this particular object that we're dealing with. So I set the default close operation again. That says if you click the X, what do you want to happen? So I can step through this thing line by line by line. Okay. So let's take a break there. And we'll come back in a few minutes with another video on basically how we can go into each one of those items.